So I'm going to start off with doing the motherboard. I like to do everything I possibly can with the motherboard before I throw it in. This is the Gigabyte B450M DS3H, which is a really good mini board. You can tell mini by the M at the end, but it actually has two GPU cards, which is great. Has two RGB headers, one 3-fan I saw, yes, right there, and a 4 right there. Also has two spots for the CPU fan and one spot for fans. So you will have to probably get a splitter. I would recommend using actually the top one for it just because it's easier to flip it to the back, but I'll show you guys what I mean, and they're pretty inexpensive to get a splitter. I was hoping there was going to be more. I thought there was, but I thought this was another one. So I'm going to first remove these 4 screws. You do not want to get rid of these plastic pieces. You think that they're just there for show, but they're actually for if you ever decide to use a water cooler. From my understanding, I've never used a water cooler on a Ryzen. It's always been Intel, but I'm going to start with that. So after all 4 of these screws are loosened, 1, 2, 3, and 4, you just gently lift them up, put them off to the side. Now there is a plate at the back. This is why I like to work on Ryzen's, especially not inside the case, because this metal piece would fall out because there is actually a big hole in the back of most PC cases when you open up the back. So now that this is completely secure, we're on to the next step. So next, you lift up this little trap, and you slide it over. You can see how it moved left or right, like so, and then you're going to grab your processor. This is a 1600 that I was using for quite a while. It's a great CPU. I'm going to be trying to do this with one hand. So you definitely want to be very, very careful because these are all tiny little pins. And if any of these get bent, they can cause the processor to work funny or not work at all. So you're going to look at your Ryzen CPU, and you can see that there's a little triangle, a gold one. Depending on which one you get, it's smaller. I know with the 3rd gen they are a lot smaller, but with these ones it usually is the bottom left hand corner, and you look at your board and you can see a triangle right there. There's none anywhere else but the indent right there. So slap her in. Sorry, I was just making sure. And it will fall in. Now, Intel uses the chipset, which is that, on the CPU, and they use the pins on the motherboard. So that way, if you screw up, a motherboard's usually a lot less expensive. Now, after it's set in, you just want to slowly pull this down and click it in. So that's it. That's it for the CPU. It is now in there. You want to make sure to try not to touch the top. This is all thermal paste on mine. You don't want to touch the top because your fingers can leave a residue that can actually harm the CPU by getting too hot. So I always just keep a Kleenex around just to make sure, just to give it a quick wipe off. Now for the fan. So this is the Ryzen heatsink. It is actually quite nice, especially get the 5. It's a lot thicker. The 3 is a lot smaller. You're going to take it, and it isn't set up perfectly like a square. It's more of a rectangle. So you're going to line it up like so. I like the AMD facing towards actually away from the RAM. I know my mistake last time. I was going to say I like it towards. I do like the look of that, but I know sometimes it can block the RAM. So away from. Now you make sure those match up with the lines. It has thermal paste on it already, I should mention that. So you do not have to worry about thermal paste, just do not touch the bottom. Just set it on, grab your screwdriver, and you want to slowly tighten each one and then slowly move around. So don't do it fully tight. That sounds normal. And I'll do the far one, and now you just keep jumping back and forth. Little by little. You can tell that it's getting tight. and just keep on going until it's snug. You don't want to ream on these things. And then just keep on going like that until it's all snug. Alrighty, so next is hooking up the CPU fan. To make sure it's tight, you can actually just grab it and lift it like this, and it won't come off or move in any way, shape, or form. So if you look at the fan, it has a little indent up top, so you want to make sure that indent lines up with the CPU. Now, because I know that I don't need to use a splitter because my fans don't use the 4 pin, I have an RGB adapter with this PC, I know I can just plug it in. So you just make sure that that little part is up there, put it towards the CPU one, which is the 4 pin, and just plug it in. Now you have this wire in the way, which you can just tuck. Just make sure not to push it completely against the heatsink. Just try to keep it out of the way. I usually tuck it underneath there and then down there. So that way it's not too noticeable. Yeah. Pretty much. And then next, I'm going to do the RAM, which I got 2 sticks of it, XBG. One is older than the other, so one is green, one is black, doesn't really matter. The logo, or sorry, the information on the RAM goes to the outside, or sorry, the inside. And by looking at this little chart thing underneath here, I can see which one is supposed to be the first one, second one, and third one. So DDR4 2, 3, and 1. So number 1 would be this one. So with this part in, opening these bad boys up. So on this board in particular, they both open up. Some boards only one opens up, and it's normally the top. So next, slide it in. Click. Click. Next, open up the next gray channel, skip it, and then that towards the inside, like so, and slide it in. Make sure to open up both. Click, click. Just give it a little tug. They're not moving. Push, 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 push.